Uh. Hang on, guys. This is totally a great start to a great video. Hello, Jacksonites. Welcome to episode 28 of Super Kaiju Binge. And oh boy, do we have a doozy of an episode to get through. I'm often baffled as to why my King Kong 05 and Kong Skull Island review has almost 10,000 views. Why? I've always wondered. Why is that one my most popular video? Is it because it's a double feature? Is it because it's too... Well, one movie is highly beloved and another one is fairly liked. I think it's underliked, but still. Or is it just because I did such a great job on that video? Maybe it's all three. Well, hopefully this one gets some... Or maybe also it's because I have some unheard of opinions when it comes to Kong 05 and Kong Skull Island. Well, hopefully this video will be similarly successful. I doubt it, but still, because I've got some interesting opinions for today's movies. Today, in another double feature, I will be reviewing both 1971's Gamera versus Zigra and 1980's Gamera Super Monster. Oh dear. And yes, I know my hair be looking whack as fuck today. Oh well. Good lord, are these movies just terrible? Not even gonna sugarcoat it or beat around the bush. These movies fucking suck. Suck diddly dick donkey balls. 1971's Gamera vs. Zigra was released 1 week before 1971's Godzilla vs. Hedorah, and unlike for myself and quite a few others, unlike Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Gamera vs. Zigra is widely considered to be one of the weakest installments of the entire Gamera franchise. A statement that I agree with, but I also kind of go a step beyond. Right after Gamera vs. Zigra was completed, Dai unfortunately went bankrupt due to the changing of Japanese studios throughout the late 60s and throughout the 70s due to the success of Ultraman and other tokusatsu shows on television. Toho was struggling to adapt to this, but Dai seemingly was just refusing to evolve with the times, and for whatever reason, throughout the late 60s and the 70s, Dai was just always in some kind of financial difficulties. And finally, after this was completed, Dai went completely bankrupt in 1972. As a result, Gamera vs. Zigra was actually distributed by Dainichi Eihai, which I'm guessing was a sub-studio through Dai, since it was only active from 1970 to 1971. This movie was also not released theatrically in the United States, instead being released directly to American television by King Features Entertainment way beyond in 1987. Um and yeah, this movie was made for pretty damn cheap, and it shows. But then after leading into Gamera Super Monster, Dai was able to partner up with Tokumo Shoten Publishing Company. I don't believe they were specifically a film studio, but they were some kind of entertainment media outlet studio. So they were able to partner together, and Dai was able to open its doors and start making movies again. However, again, for some reason, and this occurred in 1974, but a few years after that, Dai once again found themselves into financial difficulties. So, in a desperate attempt to just make a few bucks, Noriaki Yuasa and Nissan Takahashi were hired to try to make one last Gamera movie in 1980 with the release of the stock footage ripoff avant-garde that is Gamera Super Monster. And I mean, obviously, Gamera versus Zigra was not a big hit, but Gamera Super Monster was a complete and total box office flop. It absolutely failed in the box office. It failed to make any kind of money substantial enough for Dai to stay afloat and hang on to themselves as a company. And after the release of Gamera Super Monster, Dai was disbanded and buried for good for 15 years. And it's not hard to see why. Okay, so Gamera Super Monster is one of the most infamous kaiju movies ever made. It being comprised of a lot of stock footage and having a completely ridiculous, kitschy, kid-friendly alien invasion hackneyed plot is widely considered to be one of the absolute worst monster movies ever made. And this has been said before, but many people considering it to be the Godzilla's Revenge of Gamera movies. Now, it's not hard to see why, and I also agree that Gamera Super Monster makes Godzilla's Revenge look like a masterpiece. But here's my controversial opinion. I actually don't think Gamera Super Monster is the worst Gamera movie. That title, in my opinion, goes to Gamera versus Zigra. Say what you want about Gamera Super Monster, but similar to Freddy's Dead: A Final Nightmare, Gamera Super Monster can actually have people sit down and watch it and just be in awe and marvel at how whack ass bullshit nonsensical buttfuck mess of a movie it is, and oddly find it to be somewhat entertaining. It's a bad, terrible, god awful movie, no doubt about that. But there is just something kind of almost magical about how um yeah, Gamma versus Gara Sharp would have been a better movie. Speaking of which, real quick, after Gamma versus Zigra, there were a couple more ideas for Gamma movies that Dai wanted to do. The most well known of which being a movie called Gamera versus Gara Sharp, which would have had Gamera go up against a giant King Cobra green snake monster. That would have involved the plot point where Gara Sharp would stick its tongue down Gamera's throat in order to steal his power. What? Um but anyway, yeah, I actually think Gamera versus Zigra is the worst monster movie ever made because of one major thing. It's boring. Gamera versus Super Monster sucks ass, no doubt about it. But at least it's not boring. Gamera versus Zigra is one of the slowest, dullest, most uninspired, uncreative, insufferable bore fests I've ever seen in my entire life. Rewatching Gamera versus Zigra, it took me 3 days to sit through the entire movie, whereas somehow I managed to get through Super Monster in one sitting. Partially because probably it had to do with me skipping through all the stock footage, so it was like an hour watch for me. But yeah, I actually think Gamera versus Zigra is the worst Gamera movie ever made. And actually, I think Gamera versus Zigra is one of the top 5 worst monster movies ever made in the history of the genre. Maybe some big words, especially with having right next to it Gamera Super Monster. Now, that's not me saying that Gamera Super Monster is not a bad movie. It is, but I'm just saying I actually think Gamera versus Zigra is worse. So take that for what you will. With all that being said, let's jump into the plots of Gamera versus Zigra and Super Monster. Without warning, an alien spaceship attacks a Japanese moon base. Back on Earth, young Kenny in the English dubbed version, Kenichi Ishikawa, his father Dr. Yosuke Ishikawa, his friend Helen Wallace, and her father Dr. Tom Wallace witness the spaceship descending into the ocean. They go to investigate, but they are soon captured by a teleportation beam that brings them aboard the spaceship. And inside, a human-looking woman appears to them and reveals that she is of an alien race called the Zigrans. By way of demonstrating Zigran technological prowess, she creates a gigantic earthquake that wreaks havoc in Japan. She had previously caused 2 other earthquakes, one in Peru and the other in Arabia. She then tells her prisoners of the planet Zigra's history and its great scientific advances, which unfortunately have resulted in its destruction. But in searching for a new home, Zigra has found Earth. The woman contacts authorities on Earth and orders them to surrender, or she will kill her prisoners. Tom declares that the Zigran woman is insane, and in anger, she sends the 2 men into a hypnotic trance. Kenichi and Helen take action, successfully using the ship's control console to escape with their fathers. Enraged, Zigra orders the woman to go to Earth and kill the children. She says it would be simpler to kill all the people of Japan, but Zigra tells her that humans must be preserved so they can be used for food. Now, Gamera, intent on discovering the identity of the alien interloper, flies in to save the day and rescues the children and their fathers. The UN authorities, after questioning Kenichi and Helen, resolve to attack Zigra. Defense Force jets scramble, but the Zigran spaceship makes short work of them with its powerful laser beams. The alien woman arrives on Earth, disguised as a normal human, and begins her search for Kenichi and Helen. She hitches a ride with a Kamogawa SeaWorld. Yep, that's where this movie takes place. Dolphin trainer back to the facility, which the military is now using as its center of operations. She finds the 2 children, but before she can catch them, they run away from her. Gamera begins an underwater assault on the Zigran spaceship, which transforms into a giant swordfish goblin shark-like monster when hit by Gamera's flame breath. Zigra grows larger and larger and finally halts the heroic turtle with a ray that suspends all cell activity. Immobilized, Gamera sinks into the sea. Zigra then makes contact with the people of Earth, saying that they should give up and surrender all the seas to it. Back at SeaWorld, the dolphin trainer and the facility's scientists discover a way to break the aliens' hypnotic control with sonic waves. Thus, they manage to disable the Zigran woman, only to learn that she actually is an Earth woman named Chikako Sugawara, who had been on a moon rover during the initial lunar attack and was captured and used by Zigra. Doctors Wallace and Ishikawa employ a bathysphere in an attempt to wake Gamera, only to find that Kenichi and Helen have stowed away on board. Zigra suddenly attacks them and again demands the immediate surrender of Earth, or it will destroy the bathysphere. The UN commander reluctantly agrees to the aliens' terms, something carried over from Gamera versus Virus. Ugh. An electrical storm conveniently approaches the bay, and a couple of lightning bolts revive Gamera, who stealthily takes the bathysphere from the sea floor when Zigra is not looking and returns it to the surface. Gamera and Zigra face off a final time, and Zigra, using its superior versatility underwater, slices up Gamera with its blade-like dorsal fins. Gamera takes hold of Zigra, flies into the air, and then drops it at high speed, slamming the alien monster to the ground. Zigra stands up awkwardly on its tail fins in order to fight Gamera, and Gamera further incapacitates Zigra by jamming a boulder through its nose, pinning it to the ground. And after this, Gamera grabs another boulder and uses it like a mallet to play his own theme song on Zigra's back like a xylophone. In a scene that actually made my son start laughing for the very first time when he watched it with me. And then after this, Gamera kills Zigra by setting its body on fire with its flame breath, reducing it to ashes in a massive conflagration, thus ending the film and kind of ending the original line of Gamera Showa movies. But then leading us into the bullshit that is Gamera Super Monster. This movie's plot is very short on Wikipedia here, but this movie's plot is bullshit, so oh well. When the evil alien Xanon, looking totally not like an Imperial Star Destroyer from Star Wars, comes to enslave Earth, all seems lost. The Earth's resident rip-off superheroes, being just the space women, are powerless to stop them because they're shitty superheroes that have no abilities. They must enlist the help of a young boy who has a special connection with the giant turtle Gamera. The friend of all children then battles via stock footage Gauss, Zigra, Virus, Jiger, Guiron, and finally Berugan in that order. And then after all the stock footage has been depleted and Dai, Noriaki Yuasa, and Nissan Takahashi's dignity is all but gone, Gamera sacrifices his life in the end to destroy Xanon once and for all and to protect Earth one last time, thus ending the original Showa series with absolutely no dignity intact, and should walk away and go into its angry masturbation corner and just be sad. No, I do not. So, how about these plots? They suck. Talking about Gamera versus Zigra specifically, a lot of people like to say that this movie just feels tired. Yeah, I agree. This is the point where you can definitely just watch the movie and feel yourself the franchise fatigue. There has been one Gamera movie every single year since 1965. And with a fledgling film studio that's making dumb decision after dumb decision, repeatedly shooting itself in the foot and just trying to make something work when they don't have the money or resources to make it work, eventually you're just going to get tired and bored and exhausted. And that's how this movie feels, particularly in the bored section. And as for Gamera Super Monster, this movie's story is just bullshit. It's a gigantic, colossal mess of just rip off this, rip off that, and rip off everything else. It rips off Gamera. It feels like a parody of the entire kaiju franchise or kaiju genre. It rips off Superman. It rips off Star Wars. It rips off footage from other anime shows. It even kind of rips off Wonder Woman, the original 70s Wonder Woman show. More on that later. But this movie does not have an original bone in its body whatsoever. It's shameless, sad, pathetic, jaw dropping, and baffling as to how some studio executive thought this movie was a good idea and actually thought that this movie was going to make money. Stupidity. So let's get to our pros and cons for Gamera versus Zigra and Super Monster. I actually don't have a lot to say so I'm going to talk about both. For Gamera versus Zigra, I have only one pro, and that's Zigra himself. Yes, everybody loves to say that Zigra is the highlight of the film. Character-wise, no. Monster fight-wise, no. Monster action-wise, also no. Design-wise, yeah, I can see that. Zigra definitely does have a very distinctive and cool design. He looks like a giant alien menagerie of a goblin shark, and what else did they use to describe it? And also like a swordfish. Yeah, Zigra's back fins look like Zigra's nose and his back fins look kind of like a swordfish or a sailfish, but also his overall look does look very much like a goblin shark. Um, So yeah, I like his design. He's all silver, so he's pretty to look at. He's got really like distinctive red reptilian like eyes. Um, Zigra's design is cool. It's not enough to save the movie whatsoever. And his design is cool, but I just don't really see why people like him so much. More on that later. But yeah, that's the only pro that I have about Gamera versus Zigra. As far as Super Monster goes, I actually have two pros. Pro number one is Kilara, the main space woman and the leader of the three. Of the entire cast in this film, the actress playing Kilara is the only one that looks like she's actually trying with this movie. Like she's trying to give a good performance and she's trying to make best with the shitty material that she has. She has enthusiasm. You can tell she's trying. And I kind of get the feel she actually kind of was having a little bit of fun with this movie. Um, so I give her props for that. And I have to wonder, does this actress like know the Mach Fumiaki? Is that her name? Um, does she actually know the um impact that this movie has had on the rest of the kaiju genre fan base? It's just something to think about. But yeah, the actress playing Kilara and just Kilara herself, she's really the only character that you can really get attached to and follow throughout the entire film. And the actress looks like she's actually doing a sincere effort with the character. Um, and pro number two is while yes, the stock footage is shameless and painful and boring, I will say that it is edited down quite a bit, so it moves at a much quicker pace. Like specifically with all the Gamera versus Guiron stock footage, a lot of those long lingering takes are chopped down quite a bit, so the pace of those fights moves along a lot better and a lot easier to watch. Um, so that's a good thing. And there is a couple decent editing tricks to make all the stock footage flow into each other at a kind of natural pace it is still jarring going from a different Gamera suit to a different Gamera suit, and also like the film stock changes. It switches from day to night constant. Well, I'll get to that later. But yeah, the stock footage is edited down and it's a lot smoother, but so that at least makes it a bit more easier to watch, but still. And trust me, that's really scraping the bottom of the barrel with this movie. And Zigra. So let's just jump right into our cons with Gamera versus Zigra. Con number one is the bland alien invasion plot. It's literally just okay. Gamera versus Guiron is just not a beat for beat rehash of Gamera versus Virus. This movie is a beat for beat rehash of Gamera versus Virus. The aliens' motivations are a bit different, but just the way that it's portrayed, like, the aliens invade Earth, they capture a couple of humans, they give their secrets, they try to control and combat the monster. Even the UN surrenders to the alien invaders, just like in Gamera versus Virus. These movies are very, very similar. And it's just as hackneyed, just as forced, just as lazy, and just as bland. Con number two is the poor special effects. Um, the effects honestly aren't even passable like they are in Gamera versus Virus. Virus looks cheap, but it just barely scrapes by as looking like a passable, sincere effort. With this movie, I don't even remember how many cons I have. I could go on forever. Hang on, I'm actually going to right now. Hold up. Okay, so there we go. This actually, I'm gonna make my new con number two, is that this movie just looks cheap. This is almost as bad as Phantasm Oblivion. This movie just screams cheap. The effects aren't up to snuff. There's really no like fancy sets. There's the moon base, which very well could have been stock footage from a different movie. Oh, okay. Um, there's the inside of Zigra's ship, which also could have been recycled from either Guiron or Virus. That's really about it. Everything else relies on location shooting at Japanese SeaWorld, various beaches, various aquariums. Um, that's really it. This movie just looks and screams cheap. Um, it doesn't look it almost sometimes doesn't even look finished. Con number three is the poor special effects. They don't even look passable. At least with Virus, it looked like the barest effort made to make this movie look passable. With Zigra, I don't get that feeling at all. I literally just feel like this movie was made by a special effects company or a special effects team that just did not have the proper resources to make the special effects look good or even passable. They feel tired, lazy, rushed, and lackluster. It's lame. Con number four is the pacing to this movie is just bad. This really ties into this movie's biggest problem, so I'll save that for a little bit later, but this movie is paced so bad. It's so slow. Did I say 5? Okay, no. Con number 5 is the fact that there's no city destruction scenes in this movie. You see a couple aftermath shots when the Zigra chick unleashes a bunch of earthquakes all throughout the world. And again, that very well could have been stock footage from Virus or Jiger or Gauss, but I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. You see maybe less than a minute's worth of aftermath destruction footage, and that's it. One of the biggest things that, at least, I mean, yeah, I agree. With Virus, at least you do see Gamera go around and destroy the world. Whether or not it be stock footage, the effect was still there. When with this movie, Zigra says, I've unleashed magnitude 16 earthquakes all throughout the world and leveled a whole bunch of cities. That has no weight because we barely see that. And it doesn't work at all. Con number 6, the entire cast in this movie is just terrible. They're all so bland, so boring, so dull, so lifeless, so unenthusiastic, and so lackluster. Everybody looks like they're just schlepping it for a paycheck just so that they can move on with their lives and move on to their next project. And the kids in this movie are the most annoying motherfuckers in the entire Gamera franchise. Kenny and Helen are the two most annoying kids in the entire kaiju genre. God damn, do these kids just fucking suck. They're screechy, they're bratty, they're snotty, they're snobby. They're just asshole, annoying ass kids. Christ almighty. Yeah, all the characters are bull. Oh, and the Zigra chick, what the hell's her name? Chikako Sugawara, when she's not under mind control, she's not helpful in the fucking slightest in trying to help defeat Zigra. All she says is, as marine biologists, use your knowledge in that area to try to defeat Zigra. That doesn't help me in the slightest, bitch. You're just stating the obvious. Yes, I'm a marine biologist. That doesn't help me at all. Can you give me at least a hint as to what I would be looking for to defeat this monster? No. Well, then what the fuck are you here doing? Huh? Fuck out of here with that bullshit. Yeah, the entire cast in this movie is just terrible. They're bland, they're boring, they're dull. They look so unenthusiastic and they look so tired. Fuck this cast. Now we're getting to some really big problems. The next con is the piss poor ass monster fights. Gamera and Zigra fight, I think, kind of twice. And both times the monster fights are so piss poor. They're lazy. The monsters themselves feel totally uninterested in fighting each other. They're slow, they're boring, they're dull. Gamera just looks like he's a goddamn like automobile air sock puppet thing flapping his arms all around and his jaw just hangs open and he just stumbles around and barely does anything to fight against Zigra. And Zigra just stands there flapping his fins and screeching at Gamera. It just looks absurd and stupid and dull and boring. Yeah, these are honestly the absolute worst monster fights I've ever seen in my entire life. with the exception of the scene where Gamera plays his theme song on Zigra's back. That's funny and it's campy and amusing, but it doesn't save the movie in the slightest. Con number 8 is overall the monster action in this movie is just bad. Like I said, it's lethargic, it's slow and dull and tired and tedious. It's just bad. Con number 9 is the bad music. Again, except for that scene where Gamera plays his theme on Zigra's back, the entire music score in this movie is incredibly generic, dull, uninspired, and very lifeless. Just feels like uh, Shunsuke Kikuchi was just schlepping it for a paycheck. I wouldn't be surprised if he's reused some tracks from previous Gamera movies in this film. Hell, I'm pretty sure they did that. Well, no. Gamera Super Monster has a new score, but we'll get to that later. Yeah, the music is just bad. Con number 10 is the forced environmental message. Now, I really won't say it's as bad as Godzilla versus Hedorah, but once again, this movie does have a pretty hefty environmental save the earth, don't pollute the waters message, which this one it's actually a little bit more, well, no, it was appropriate in Hedorah, it's just shoved down your throat. It is appropriate to the story in this film as well because Zigra is a mostly aquatic monster. So he lives in the water, so he doesn't want the people to pollute the waters. Thing is, though, there's a lot of beauty shots of pollution and a lot of scenes where people say we shouldn't pollute the waters or we're polluting the earth too much. We're just like, okay, guys, we get it. Pollution's bad. Move on. It's not as bad as as Godzilla versus Hedorah, which I'm not sure if that's a nice thing you can say about this movie or if it's just something you can say about this movie. But yeah, the environmental message does appear to be forced, at least to me. And the final con with Gamera versus Zigra, this movie's boring. It's so dull because the actors don't look like they give a shit. The special effects technicians feel like they don't give a shit. The music composer doesn't feel like they give a shit. And the monsters themselves feel like they don't give a shit about fighting each other. This movie is incredibly boring. The most boring monster movie I've ever fucking seen in my goddamn life. Something's going on outside. The kaiju genre is like one of my top 3 favorite genres in all of cinema. And when you steep to the lowest of lows in making a monster movie boring, you truly have fucked up and you should just go sit in an angry masturbation corner and just shut the fuck up and don't move because nobody likes you. Holy shit. Moving on to Gamera Super Monster. Con number 1 is the dreadful cast. Aside from Kilara, surprisingly, I have only 8 cons for Gamera Super Monster, but they're huge cons. But yeah, the cast in this movie is once again, they're not quite as dull. Kilara's 2 sisters, as I'll call them, because they may as well be, her 2 sisters don't do anything. Another reason why Kilara is arguably the best character in this film is that she's really the only one who's actually trying to be proactive in the film. We'll get to the kid character, but her 2 sisters don't really do anything. They just look like they're there to be I guess, some kind of support, but they barely do anything. One of them has only 3 or 4 lines, and the third one, I think, speaks once in the entire movie. They're just there to stand there and look bored and just fill out a character cast. My God. The alien Xanon space woman, I also find her to be incredibly annoying because she's incredibly incompetent. Looking back, yes, Doctor Who and King Kong Escapes also does come off as looking kind of incompetent, but at least Eze Yamamoto looks, or he's having a good time playing the character. With this chick, the aliens Xanon chick, she's incompetent and she also is not doing a good job playing the character. She once again looks bored and she looks like she's just here being goofy for the sake of being goofy and being portrayed as hilariously incompetent just to make the space women look better when in fact they're really not. They're some of the worst superheroes I've ever seen. The only scene where I feel like she's trying is her fight scene with Kilara. The fight choreography for that scene is terrible, but at least the scene's kind of funny. But yeah, she's terrible. Keiichi is also really fucking annoying. He comes off as being a big ripoff of Toshio from the original Gamera. Far more annoying because he's constantly singing this movie's new theme song, and he never shuts the fuck up. His connection to Gamera makes no sense. Why is this kid so integral to the story and tagging along with the space women? And also, at the very end, when Xanon is defeated, Kilara says, "You are now a spaceman. You can fly and have super strength like me." Where did these powers come from? The fuck? Yeah, the cast in this movie is just bad. Except for Kilara, they're all poorly acted. They all look bored and out of place, and they just look absolutely terrible. Con number 2 is the story to this movie is pretty fucking lame. Um, it's again another hackneyed alien invasion plot, but what also makes it lame is that it's so desperately trying to rip off everything else that was popular in order to make itself look cool. Guess what? It doesn't. Con number 3 is, I think, hang on. No, yeah. Con number 3 is the space women themselves are shitty. They say they're superheroes, yet they do absolutely nothing throughout this entire film to actually showcase them as being superheroes to save the Earth. They're more interested in self-preservation. Oh, we can't use our powers, otherwise Xanon will destroy us. Oh, we can't fight back against the monsters because then we have to use our powers and then Xanon will destroy us. Oh, we can't do anything to save the world and from anything that's threatening it. Otherwise, Xanon will use their weapons to kill us for using our powers. Then what the fuck is the point of you guys being superheroes then? Take the risk. That's what good superheroes do. Not to mention you can fly. You can dodge their weapons long enough to try to fight back against the monsters, I'm sure. There's another aspect about them that I'll talk about in just a minute. That's bad. But yeah, these superheroes are shitty. They do nothing to save the Earth. They complain about it being in danger, yet they do nothing to try to actually save it from danger. Con number 4 is, holy shit, is this movie a Star Wars ripoff? This has got to be one of the most shameless, sad, lame attempts at ripping off Star Wars I've ever seen. I've never seen the movie Message from Space, released by Toei. I think it was in 1978. But I have seen a few reviews, and that also looks like it's one of the biggest Star Wars ripoffs. But at least even then the movie looks like it's trying to be a legit movie. Yes, heavily inspired by Star Wars, but the filmmakers were still trying to make it its own movie. Whereas here, this movie is purely ripping off Star Wars solely as an attempt just to make money and make itself look cool and distinctive. Well, yes, it's distinctive, but for all the wrong reasons, because it's lame, shameless, pathetic, and sad how badly this movie rips off Star Wars. It literally rips off the scene where the Star Destroyer flies over the screen and you get uh the long pan shot of the entire Star Destroyer and you see its engine fly by at the screen. This movie does that at the very beginning of the film. And it's matte painting shots of the Xanon ship going around blowing up satellites honestly does look like concept art from Ralph McQuarrie from the original Star Wars stuff. It's sad and pathetic and painfully obvious they're trying to rip off Star Wars. Damn. Some people have said because everything was ripping off Star Wars that this movie gets a pass. Yes, that's true, but I don't give it a pass because it's shameless, boring, and annoying. Con number 5 is that the space women themselves are ripoffs of Superman and the original Linda Carter Wonder Woman show. The way they're dressed looks just like Christopher Reeve's spandex Superman suit. They have spandex bodysuits and red boots and red gloves and red capes. Granted, Superman didn't have gloves, but he had a spandex suit with a red cape and red boots. They used pretty much the same effect as Superman flying in the original Superman movies, just having Christopher Reeve be on wires on a green screen. Same thing here, much more poorly done because of the shitty special effects. But yeah, and also the way they transform into their superhero forms, they do like this cross arm and spin thing. It looks just like Diana from the original Wonder Woman show, her spinning around and morphing into her Wonder Woman costume. And also with these being female superheroes, I just get the feeling not only were they ripping off Superman, but Wonder Woman at the same time. This movie. Con number 6, speaking of which, is the horrible special effects. There's a lot of green screen effects in this movie, and they look absolutely horrible. They look painfully obvious as green screen effects. The weird video effects with the Space Women's pedo base of operations van morphing from being in one spot to another and then to another. It's bad and cringy and painful and looks so cheap and so rushed. All the green screen effects are terrible. The super women flying may as well be super women because they're such big ripoffs. The effects look terrible. It's very obvious they're just having them either be on strings on a green screen or a static image of the chicks having their arms outstretched, and then they just like move that across the screen to simulate them flying. It's painful, it's cringy, it's terrible, it's cheap, it's annoying, and it's laughably bad. Con number 7 is all the anime stock footage. Why is this here? Other than just to make the movie even more nonsensical, more bullshit, and more of a hack, lazy rehash. Why is this here? It sticks out like a sore thumb. And the biggest problem of all is, of course, the previous Gamera stock footage. There is 32 minutes of stock footage from previous Gamera movies in this film. And this movie is only an hour and 32 minutes long. You can literally skip through 1/3 of this movie because it's all stock footage and all shit that we've already seen. It's painfully boring, painfully sad, painfully cringy, and just laughably terrible. That's all that I have to say about both of these movies. They're just awful. Gamera Super Monster, yes, is one of the worst monster movies ever made. It's probably in the top 5 list easily. It's nonsensical, it's hilariously inept, it's painful, it's boring, it's dull, it's annoying, and it's just astonishing at how bad this movie is. I actually, though, going against one of my most infamous phrases, I sort of do recommend Gamera Super Monster for at least one watch as like the ABCs of what not to do when you're making a monster movie. But I also would say that Gamera versus Zigra is the 1, 2, 3 ABCs of definitely what not to do when you're making a kaiju film. Once again, I will say I actually think Gamera versus Zigra is the worst Gamera movie of the entire franchise. Super Monster is bad, but you can sit down and laugh at it for how hilariously inept it is. When you watch Gamera versus Zigra, there's only one thing that you will experience: death by boredom. I've said this many times. A greatest sin a movie can make is if it's boring. And this is the most boring monster movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Again, I had to sit through it 3 times before I finally finished the damn movie. I just could not do it in one sitting. It's boring, it's dull, it's tired, it's lethargic. The franchise fatigue is set deep in its bones, and it's just terrible. I will be giving Gamera Super Monster a 0.5 out of 10. It's an awful movie. It's terrible. It's poorly made. It's hilariously inept. And I will be giving Gamera versus Zigra a whopping 0 out of 10. Big words, I know, but that's just how I feel. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think, and hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And as always, go out and watch some good monster movies, for Christ's sake. Don't be bored. And I will see you guys in the next video for something spooky.